Hello, welcome to the Arcimoto podcast. Today we have with us John Miller. Do you want to take a minute
Hello.
and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm John Miller, Director of Communications at Arcimoto.
Love it.
Great to be here. Is this the season premiere of season 2? Something like that?
Yeah, that was an interesting
I didn't know we
email.
had podcast seasons.
I didn't either. So who knows? Maybe this is the beginning of season 2. If so, it's a joy. How long have you been at Arcimoto, and kind of what is the Director of Communications?
Yeah, so I started in June of, was that 2018? So it'll be 4 years next month. Really exciting journey. We came on right before the Evergreen launch, so our first production vehicles, which was, incredibly exciting. We had been doing a lot of test drives up to that point with our old Signature series. Rest in peace. Blue and orange were our two workhorses we would take all over the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, so started 4 years ago. Have been here. I think I was employee number 70-ish.
Whoa.
And I think we're up to about 270 now.
Yeah. It must have changed quite a bit in those 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the mission has stayed the same. Our message has mostly stayed the same. But to see some of the things that I wasn't even expecting, like the flatbed, the things we can do on that platform would continually surprise me. The Roadster, I had no idea that was coming.
So 4 years ago, was there just the FUV, or was there Deliverator as well?
Just the FUV, yeah. So we were there for the launch of the Deliverator. Jim Jordan, one of our R&D gurus, and Brad Harness had put it together, and immediately it was just so badass. And I think, personally, I'm like, man, I mean, FUV is amazing, but I think the market opportunity for the Deliverator is as big as anything out there.
And as a communication guy, you kind of, at least, we're both in the marketing department. It seems like we kind of know exactly what each other does, but I see a lot of press releases from you, like Hawaii just came out this morning at 6 a.m. So Deliverator's coming out. Is your immediate thoughts just how you're going to phrase it to the public, or what kind of happens?
Yeah, so the beginning is let's say we have an announcement. Let's say it's a product announcement like the Deliverator, or, even opening a new state like Hawaii. We have some kind of news we need to spread. So first, let's get the message and the story. So I have a background as a copywriter, so I'll write a lot of the sort of the fact sheets of the vehicles, the copy on the website, how we describe this, as part of a team, but I'll be the one taking that first crack at it. And then it's let's put together that PR plan. So when we have an announcement, sort of the best practice is let's try and pitch some of these electric vehicle media a few weeks in advance, get them the news under embargo, so that when that press release hits, we have maximum coverage from hopefully top-tier media outlets. That's
exciting. And do you communicate with kind of magazines and news organizations? Because we do get picked up by quite a few kind of magazines,
Yeah, no, I do, but mostly I manage the two of our PR agencies, so they'll do the direct contact with the media. So we'll give them the plan, we'll give them the message, we'll give them the assets. I kind of consider myself a toolbox for a journalist. I was a journalist before moving into PR. And it's what are all the things you need to tell a great story? So we got to get you the art assets. We got to get you hopefully the video, certainly the specs and the messaging, the timing, the availability. All the who, what's, where's, when's, and why's.
Yeah, and so you say you have a history in this. Was it also with electric vehicles, or kind of what were you in, and what was the difference between what you were covering in this?
Yeah, I started out as a sports writer coming out of college, big sports guy, go Ducks. And from there, I actually transitioned over to a journalist for IGN.com. So I was writing about video games, which was great. Worked for with some awesome people throughout the video game industry.
Did you cover racing games at all?
A little bit.
You've heard
I went to Moto GP race in Laguna Seca. I think I reviewed that for IGN back in 2006. I covered a lot of Madden and FIFA, nice. NBA.
Still sports world. You've heard the joke that every vehicle in a video game is electric, right?
True.
Right? It's pretty good. So, I mean, you had been covering electric vehicles before you started at Arcimoto. What brought you to Eugene or Arcimoto in general then?
Yeah, so after video games, after working as a journalist, I got hired at THQ, a now defunct video game publisher. But they did WWE wrestling games, UFC at the time. I worked on the Saints Row franchise, South Park, The Stick of Truth. That was a blast. So I had two of the like craziest, funniest games in Saints Row and South Park.
Towing the
Working with
line.
some really funny people, doing some really edgy campaigns at the time. Campaigns I don't think, at least for Saints Row, you just can't do them anymore.
Yeah.
Those days are over.
Wow. So
Thankfully.
this is tame territory compared to that. You know, you're covering like.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, no, I love it. But that was like sort of my first foray into the public relations side, and it was coming as a journalist and basically being like, what do I need to give these guys what I would need to make a great story? Yeah. And then about 4 years ago, I mean, I love video games; they're really fun. But I'm also, you know, very interested in climate change, and I really wanted to get into green tech. I was getting a little older, sort of aging out. Some of the games weren't as interesting to me as they used to be, which is partly a problem. Like, I don't know if you guys are gamers or not, but a lot of the games, it's like we get the fresh graphics, but it's the same gameplay we've had. Like, I love Assassin's Creed, and I love that story, but like I've done that combo 1,000 times in 12 different games.
So it's kind of just wanting more out of your job, like more actual kind of like soulful satiation.
Yeah, and Jocelyn and I, my wife, we had met in San Francisco when I was working at Ubisoft, working on South Park and some Assassin's Creed. And we decided to take a year in Argentina. So we flew down there, lived there for about 9 months. I wrote a book. We worked remote. I was like a freelance copywriter, which is also really fun. Copy's really fun to write.
What is copyright? I got to ask.
So, well, like if you go to, Arcimoto.com/FUV, like all those words you see, the words you would see on the back of a box of a video game. So kind of the consumer-facing copy, that's something a customer is going to read. Like, is it going to grab your attention? And you're kind of like writing in this like movie trailer voice, very like epic stuff.
Fun.
So I love that. That's, I would say I'm more of a creative writer even than a journalist. But either way, just telling cool stories is fun. And that's a lot of what good copy is. What is the story of this product and why is it awesome?
I like it. Do you go just for the exact right thing the first time, or do you just write like 2 pages, condense it down to a half a page kind of guy?
It depends. Sometimes you get it on the first swing. It's rare. It does feel good. It's a very collaborative process, like especially the bigger the organization. I remember doing a naming exercise for Ubisoft. We were going to name a new game, and it's like the first time I was like, here are like 10 names, and here's like the 2 I would choose and why. And they're like, we want like 200 names. I was like, all right. And these,
whoa.
Yeah, but they used one of them, so.
Decision fatigue would get to me at 200 names. I'm like, 2 names is great, It's
well, then they'll kick it up to the higher ups and the marketing team and decide what to go with. But you had to be the one that gets to like take that first crack at it is really satisfying, especially when you see, I remember the first joy of like seeing your first story in print. Like you get that kind of thrill when you see a box on a video game shelf at Target, and you're like, oh, those are my words. Yeah,
I like it. And so how did you actually, you wanted a little bit more out of life than video games. How did you actually come to Arcimoto?
Yeah, so Joss and I were in Argentina, and we came back. We had been living in San Francisco, and when we came back, it was already like the rent in our places that we had been living in was like twice as expensive. And we're like, well, we're getting a little older now. A lot of our friends are getting married and moving into the suburbs. So we had a great like 8-year run in San Francisco. Let's go travel across the country. We've been working remote in Argentina this whole time. Let's go travel around the country and find our next like favorite city in America. And we were looking for kind of the next Portland or the next Austin. 2 great cities, but like if you go there now, people will be like, oh, it's too crowded, it's too expensive. But there was a time there where like, a lot of our people we knew in San Francisco were like, oh, we got to go here. This is the next spot. San Francisco's played out. Wow. So we bought our little Honda Fit and took a 9-month-long road trip trying to find our new favorite city, something artsy, progressive, affordable, but up and coming. Yeah. And we went to Florida and back.
Oh, and Florida. No, I'm kidding.
No, our second favorite town, I think, was this little town called Dunedin, northeast of Tampa, right on the water. And it was just beautiful little progressive place, very bike friendly. That's very important to us.
I mostly say because I'm jealous of their weather. I'd love to be in warm, humid air right now. Instead, we got slightly chilly winters here in Oregon, but and so you're all the way in Florida. You come all the way to the opposite side of the U.S.
And our next to last stop was Eugene, and we sublet this little house in South Eugene, right on the Amazon bike path. we're big cyclists. I mean, we pretty much fell in love on our bikes in San Francisco. And we, first morning, beautiful Saturday, July morning, and we start riding on this bike path. And bike infrastructure is very important. Like, if you have good bike infrastructure, you're probably a great place to live. If you don't, you're probably not that great. Like, we were in Tennessee, and people were, like, honking at us to get off the road. They don't even have sidewalks or bike lanes. You're like, oh. And we're riding on this beautiful, protected bike path through a park, and then we get onto this, like, beautiful main street, high street, which has this nice protected bike lane. And we're going by all these craftsman homes. And then we get downtown, and there's this huge, 4-block public market going on, the Saturday market, which we know and love. But at the time, we didn't even know. We just rolled in. We're like, look at this community all coming together.
And this is 4 years ago? Did you move to
that was a little bit longer than that. So that was probably like 6-7 years ago. And we were big beer tourists. We probably went to like 200 breweries on our trip across the country. And we sit down at the farmer's market, and we get a jalapeno corn lager from Agrarian Brewery, rest in peace. And we're sitting there, and the music's playing, and we're just in beautiful downtown Eugene on a perfect day, easy bike ride, great craft beer. And I look at Jocelyn. This is like 20 minutes. And we're like, I think this is the place.
Wow.
So we moved here. I was working remote for a video game company at the time, Aspire, out in Austin. And but that was like when I was getting the inkling, like, here we are in Eugene, a city that has the potential to be kind of that green tech capital of the Northwest, I would like to think. Very progressive place, open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. Really a city where only Arcimoto could be born.
Yeah, truly.
And I met Matt Sayer at the gym. I was wearing one of my like tech backpacks you get at a tech conference for free, some swag.
Yeah.
And he just recognized it, having been a veteran of all these conferences. And he's like, oh, you work in tech? And I was like, oh, I work in video games, but I'm really looking to get into some green tech stuff, maybe solar. And he's like, well, you got to check out Arcimoto. And Matt he had run the Tech Association of Oregon, the Eugene chapter.
Now he's Chamber of Commerce with, the new Eugene Rain kind of thing.
Yeah, he's been instrumental in like bringing in great companies. He was a big part of why Southwest Airlines came here and opened a Eugene hub. We took those guys on a top secret tour. They couldn't even tell us who they were. Only after did we realize they were Southwest Airlines.
Wow.
So now they're flying out of Eugene. That was a very cool moment. But like, he helped, spearhead that and set that up.
Yeah, I hate to be this person. I promise we'll get back to this, but you led into it. It's been something I wish would come up with you. You said you fell in love on a bike, and we'll get back to this part of the story. But you also kind of got married in a FUV. That was the perfect lead-in. I missed it, and it got too late, but I have to ask. What's the story for that?
So we got married like a week after I started, and they were like, do you want to start after the wedding? And I was like, why don't we start the week before? Let's get all the paperwork. The first week is all paperwork, and it's signing up for your healthcare plan and all that. So I was like, let's just get that out of the way. And then why don't we bring a FUV up to Sweet Cheeks Winery, and let's get John and Jocelyn in our bridal clothes, which is still one of my favorite pictures of all time. And I think it's at the bottom of the FUV page still.
Fun.
Yeah, so we brought that up. It was an immediate hit. We had him at the rehearsal dinner. We were doing like little test drives around the corner. Jeremy Bronson took some beautiful pictures. Yeah, it was really incredible experience because it was, we're inviting our friends and family to Eugene for the first time. Many of them have never been here. Most our people are from California. And to be able to show this like really cool, beautiful vehicle for the first time because, it turns heads. Everyone drops their jaw.
That would be the hit of a wedding, and you got to clock the hours. I'm kidding. No, but so you're back.
Expense the wedding.
You're getting that's so funny. You're getting a secret tour from an airlines company.
Oh no! So yeah, that was Matt Sayers. Like that was his deal. But yeah, he asked us to like take them on a tour of Eugene in the Arcimoto, and that was a blast.
Cool.
But I was talking to him at the gym that first time, and I was like, I really want to get into some green tech. He's like, well, you got to check out Arcimoto. And I did, and I started watching all the YouTube videos, and I was like, I had never heard of it. My first impression was like, what the heck is this thing? I'm coming from the old sort of driver paradigm, and it didn't quite make sense to me. But then I'm watching like every single YouTube video, that we had published up to that time. I was like, oh, I totally get it now. And then like a week later, a communications role opened up, and I applied. Fritz brought me in for an interview, took me on my first test drive up to Skinner Butte, and I was like, oh yeah, I could sell the heck out of this thing.
Nice.
So yeah, they hired me on, and 4 years later, here we are.
I love it. Time flies. Now you're on a podcast talking about the whole story. And so kind of, what is your favorite part of the job? Now you've been here 4 years, got to kind of see all the different parts of it. What do you really enjoy doing kind of day to day, week to week?
There's a lot. Really, I think my favorite thing is getting media and customers into their first ever FUV drive.
The best.
It's, that kind of, that's so contagious, that like positive energy. You always feel so good after that, because it's a weird vehicle, right? There's nothing like it on the road, and but once you drive it, you're like, oh my God, that same feeling I felt the first time, I drove it, and that's always great, and especially when, even more satisfying than that is when we see like reporters who fall in love with the vehicle and write great content. I mean, that's what we're here to do.
Absolutely. I mean, it really sells itself. I reached out to Jason Nash and Nuggets Joe, multiple million YouTube subscribers, and I just said, hey, do you want to try a new kind of vehicle? It's 3 wheels, all electric. And they just said, boom, yes. And the Roto team met them in California. They tried it. They loved it. Got a ton of content. I'm like, it's so cool to kind of have a product that's like really, it's not like you're kind of pushing it on anyone. It's just like you kind of offer it and people are like, yes. They just love the opportunity, which is, it makes kind of the marketing job quite a bit easier,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's something new and crazy. Like that's always going to be sort of newsworthy.
Yeah.
I remember, I pitched a Wired magazine and they put it in there, and it was just like, oh, that was, one of my favorite publications of all time. And that was probably my favorite like press highlight of all time that we've had here so far. But
yeah. And so what does getting into Wired magazine kind of take? Do you just like befriend an editor? You reach out like?
Yeah, we reach out, we tailor, a pitch. We find out, who are the writers and editors that are covering this space. Mm-hmm. What do they like? What do they don't like? And, but really, you send them in my pitch, I just like to put a GIF of just the FUV because it's so eye-catching. It's hard to describe it in words. You throw an image there or a link to a YouTube video. And it's very rare when we get pressed, like turn down the opportunity for a drive.
Yeah. And then if you get them in test drive, then they're really sold. It's a fascinating thing where it's like, like seeing it on YouTube is one thing, and then you actually drive for the first time, it's like, oh, it's light bulb. It's like, oh, I get it. This is truly kind of different. Like, it's like you actually just get to enjoy, not to like, just talk about it too much, but it's actually fascinating to like, I think a lot of people have jobs where they don't like really stand by what like their company does. And I guess that's kind of the reason maybe you left video games. But it's fascinating to be at a place where you actually love and enjoy the impact that your company has on the world. Well,
I would say I did love all my time in video games.
Nice.
Like great employees, some lifelong friends, and some amazing adventures across the world. But it just felt like, here I had all these skills, and can I put them to better use? And also working for a company, like a brick and mortar company in Eugene proper. I met some lifelong friends here, mm-hmm. and that was probably cooler than working remote in general, I would say.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't public when you started 4 years ago. So you've seen
No, it was public.
It was public.
I think it IPO'd the year before. I think that was 2017.
Yeah, I get lost in you start thinking a couple of years ago. It's hard to think right on the dot.
September 19th,
More or less, I was going to be curious if you're the person, in charge of communications when it went public. I was like, what would that be like,
Oh man, I can only imagine. And that's another thing is I work a lot with the the IR team, the investor relations team, so helping them set up those conferences, and that's something that I hadn't really done before as well. So a really cool learning experience.
Yeah, things that I imagine you wouldn't do before is give test drives. So the director of communications, like, did you not start in that role when you're giving a lot more test drives, or do you still today? Like,
no, I still do. It depends on the event. So typically we're on the road. Sam Fittipaldi and I did amazing. We've done some great road trips together. We were just down in Australia with Directed Technology, some amazing partners, giving test drives to people down there.
Down under.
First time anyone's ever driven an FUV in Australia. Super cool.
Nice.
And we did one epic trip. It was started in Vegas and went all the way to Key West.
Whoa.
Sam, Darby, and I. And we had 3 FUVs, and we stopped at every cool city along the way and had press drives. We sent out the newsletter for test drive signups, and it was like completely full the whole trip. And I mean, just like 100 people in Austin in like 90-degree heat, just sweating and waiting for their drive.
Wow. So it's like the preface to the Roto Trip kind of thing.
A little bit. I mean, yeah, getting butts in seats is the most important. It wasn't sort of an infinite road show, but yeah, us three of us were able to tackle it. We had a conference in Miami, and we had potential rental partners in Key West, which are now our actual rental partners.
Wow.
And we had a conference in Vegas. So the vehicles were going. We're like, okay, let's stop in San Antonio. Let's stop in Austin. Let's stop in New Orleans, Tallahassee, Orlando, the villages.
Yeah.
And do these drives. And I know several of those people are customers today.
That's awesome. Do you still get out on the road, or have you kind of
Oh, definitely. We just got back from Australia
a couple
weeks ago. Going down to Long Beach for the Electrify Expo, June, I think that's 3, 4, 5. So if you guys are in Long Beach, check it at electrifyexpo.com. Get those tickets. Free test drives with the FUV. I mean, the tickets aren't free, but so we'll be down there. So I still love doing the test drive. I don't do it as much because I haven't been on the Roto Trips, but mostly for press. So if we're going to open a new state like Hawaii.
Did you go to Hawaii?
Yeah. We brought the first, I think it was the first FUV. I took that picture today. That was in the press release that went out. We took that in Waikiki, like
it's a really good photo.
2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
That's awesome. And
just on my phone. Like I would say like 30% of the photos on the website are from those like road trips from my Google Pixel.
Phones are surprisingly good these days.
Yeah.
Okay, so just I'm curious to walk through it. I'm sure a lot of people are like, what is a director? A lot of writers out there are curious. So you're aware that we're opening Hawaii. Obviously, you can't talk about it to anyone. What is kind of your steps leading up to? Say it's like a month or two out. Like, what do you kind of get rolling and get in place?
Yeah, so ideally you sort of pick your release date and you work backward from that. And opening a new state is a little different because it's not like a product announcement. So a new state, we have to have everything kind of hit at the same time. So our customer experience team is reaching out to those customers. The website is all updated and ready to take orders. I would say the only thing that really happens in advance is ideally we have that release done. It's under embargo. I can give it to reporters early so that their coverage will hit on the day. Something like a product launch is a little different. Like let's take the flatbed, which is scheduled to come out later this year. So we would put together a PR plan, say, it depends, but, say 3, 4, 5, 6 months out even, where we'd have first drives with reporters, invite them out to get them behind the curtain, try it before it comes out. They get to be some of the first people in the world to test it out. We'll look for potential partners to show it off. So the flatbed has great use on like farms and for agricultural use and just for around town. I think it actually was sort of born out of our pilot program with the city of Orlando.
Really?
Wait, what's the story there? we were doing the pilot with Orlando, and we had the deliverators and FUVs and rapid responders, and they really liked the deliverator, but they wanted something like for their parks department, more akin to one of those like maintenance golf carts you might see that has that kind of flat bed. And we're like, we can do that. And then the flatbed was born.
That's fascinating. So were you there in Orlando when that kind of happened, or you just kind of hear about it?
I wasn't there I was there. I'm trying to.
That's how a new vehicle comes
we were
about.
there. We were there. We were meeting with Chris Castro, one of the directors of sustainability.
Yeah.
Just a real leader in the country as far as city employees go. Orlando is considered one of the most sustainable cities in the whole country, and he's been spearheading that effort. Won a ton of awards. Great guy, Chris Castro. Hope you're doing well.
That's awesome.
And he brought us in with the city, and they gave us that feedback, and we brought it back home. And
that's all. I know. I was curious, and I'm sure a lot of people are. Like, how do they pick what vehicle to make next? Like, what kind of platform to tackle? And there's the city tells you.
I mean, certainly that helps. I think the Roadster was like, what if we chop off the roof, right? So, you have this platform, and we have these great guys in R&D who are super creative, and I think Jim Jordan just hacked the roof off that thing. Like, I'll put a little motorcycle saddle here. And, so I'm not too into sort of the early product development, but it is cool to see what, that talented group of people comes up with.
Absolutely. And so not new state opening, but new product. MLM, that's pretty recent.
Yeah, MLM's a great example. Yeah, so what we would like to do is, here's here's a great example. So we announced the MLM. We kind of gave a teaser. We don't know how much it is. We don't know how fast it goes. We don't know how much it weighs. Right. Or, well, we might know internally, but we haven't shared that information yet because it's still in development. That's going to change.
Your dream as a communicator. You can't communicate any of it.
Well, it's kind of a cycle. Think about a movie, right? Think about it like a movie teaser. Then you go to a movie trailer.
Yeah.
And then you might even have like some behind the scenes stuff that comes out before. So how do you like capture people's interest with as little information as possible?
Yeah.
And basically we can say, hey, we're making a 3-wheel tilting trike based on Tilting Motorworks technology. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a cool story. We've got the photos. I think we announced it at the Ramp It Up event. So that's like your first pillar, right? You got a nice, we'll call it campaign tent pole.
Yeah.
So
the teaser's out.
Yeah, you have your teaser, then you have your like preview phase, and then you have your product launch and review phase. So you're going to want to get that teaser out, get the immediate interest, and now we have a lot of customers also. Like I want to be able to tell them more, but we can't just yet because it's still under development.
Is that different from other? Like, were you at a publicly traded company before? Or like, is it different? Like, I'm assuming you work with legal all the time now.
Oh yeah, well everything external needs to go through legal anyways, which is just a good safety net, and they've been awesome. Sometimes I give them stuff like hours before it needs to go out, and they'll be like, okay, thank you.
But I assume at other companies you didn't really need to do that.
No, absolutely. You always, Ubisoft, THQ, yeah, you have big, massive. These are huge campaigns of like, $1 million products or however you want to describe it. So it's a big deal. Like you want to, that's why having that great plan and building it out. So hopefully you get the plan approved in advance. You're going to get all the assets approved before they go out.
I guess I was always under the kind of understanding that public companies have more scrutiny of like anything could be like traded on, but private companies, it seems like they could be more kind of...
Ubisoft is public, THQ is public.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've worked at big public companies before.
Yeah.
But even then,
I meant when you
still have a legal department. So there is more scrutiny. Like you shouldn't say something publicly before we've had a chance to like properly announce it.
Yeah.
Which I think could be considered like some kind of insider trading or something. But other than that, we still have kind of the same standards. Like, and for me, it's really press interest, and we got to work, sort of again toolbox for the journalist. So we give them enough for like a great story. Here's this new product intro, but now they have questions, and we can't answer them all. But hopefully we got a nice little press pop out of that first tent pole.
Yeah. And
now the next phase, moving up to the MLM, is we'll debut like sort of the production design. This will be the production intent vehicle, and we'll bring in journalists to take their first press rides. That'll be its own separate tent pole. So ideally, you see those previews coming before it comes out, gets people really excited.
And then the review phase, you mentioned that, and I wanted to ask in the moment. So what is that? Like once it's out on the market, like you kind of just feel people?
You can do it before. Ideally, you do it before under embargo. So we have the production vehicles. Let's say it launches on, I don't know, we'll just say November 1.
Yeah.
So let's say that month of October, you have these final vehicles.
This is a hypothetical vehicle at a hypothetical company. This isn't a real date, yeah.
Yeah, and it depends on what the product is, but in advance, ideally you want to get it to a journalist. You don't want to... So you want to get it to them in advance so that once the product is actually launched, and we say, hey, this product is now available, that press release goes out, those journalists are able to hit enter and submit their story, and it goes live at the same time. So it's newsworthy for them. It's all kind of coming together.
Yeah.
But they're under embargo, and that's a big advantage for them. And as journalists, you want that. You want to have some time to write your story, put it together. If I just announce something and if you're a journalist and you don't have any of that, now you're already late because someone has already written it. So you've missed the scoop, so to speak. And you can't do it for everyone, but you want to get like as many top tier journalists as possible.
Yeah. Were you on that side when you were an independent, like when you were traveling the world and stuff? Were you on that side of kind of covering companies not being out when you were a freelancer? Were you just trying to get the scoop at that point, or? I guess when you were a freelancer, were you working at a company, or were you trying to like get coverage?
Yeah, I was doing mostly copywriting from the road, so I wasn't doing like PR campaigns. I would say the last game I had launched before Argentina was South Park. Well, South Park: Stick of Truth. Then we also launched Assassin's Creed Liberation, a really cool one with the first female assassin in New Orleans. Really cool game. And then so those were like the end of those sort of campaigns. Then I was doing copywriting after that on the road. That's just a lot easier to do. You can be creative. It's hard on the road, like we're traveling all over, to sort of put that together. And that's something you mostly want to be able to be in-house for as well. Yeah. You're not going to see a lot of freelance people putting together whole PR campaigns.
So was your embargo back when you're kind of covering like Assassin's Creed? Would you just get the game early and you just play it a bunch and then you kind of write up stuff about it? Or what was that like?
Yeah, exactly right.
Wow.
We would get, so like at IGN, the publisher, let's say Electronic Arts, would send us a copy of a preview copy of FIFA. So it's not final. It has some bugs.
Yeah.
They still got some work to do, but it's in a good playable state that they're proud of. And they'll give it to us. Hopefully we write up a glowing article. And you can't be too critical because it's still a preview. And you'll say, well, hopefully these things are fixed by the final review. We'll see. But you get to, give people the first look before it comes out.
Wow, that's got to be. So you've been doing that a long time, and now you get to do it for Arcimoto. That's an awesome journey. We're just about a half hour in. Not that we have to cut it, but I'm more or less curious. Your journey's brought you to here. What excites you about tomorrow? Like working with Arcimoto in terms of
Yeah, so I'm really excited about we call it the future of transportation, and I love telling this story because we're not there yet. We might even be decades away. But Arcimoto's put itself in a great position to achieve that. So what do we know about the future of transportation? We know it's going to be electric, right? Check. That's a no-brainer. We think it's going to be shared as well. You go to cities around the country, you'll see, especially with young people, car ownership is on decline. It's very expensive to own and maintain and park a car. I mean, San Francisco, I was so glad when I got rid of my car. It saved you a ton of money. Yeah. I think the stat was like $9,000 a year, something like that. When you add it all up. So, and then it sits, you only use it for maybe an hour or two a day. The average American only drives 30 miles a day. So now you have this thing that's depreciating in value, taking up space, and it's costing you a lot of money. So we're seeing car ownership on the decline. You'll see in cities, many people are either riding their bikes, they're taking Ubers, they're taking Lyfts, they're taking Lime scooters, things like that, especially in the urban environment. And there's more people living in cities. More than 50% of the world's population now lives in cities, and that's only growing and will continue to grow. Wow. And if you've been to any city lately, you've probably been stuck in traffic. So we see how transportation the current system is a problem. Mm-hmm. If we all have a vehicle and they're all sitting there taking up space, problem. So we think that shared mobility is going to be a thing. That means you're not going to own the car. It'll be more transportation as a service. You hit a button on an app, a vehicle is going to arrive, take you where you need to go. The third pillar of that would be autonomous. Self-driving is also sort of a no-brainer, especially in cities. It's something like 94% of all accidents are caused by human error. And now we're very closer than many people think on some of the technology for a real safe driving experience that takes all the hassle and white knuckle stress. You're going to be kicking back, streaming video on your windshield in like business class, just chilling, or maybe it's a mobile hot tub. Maybe it's a mobile office and you're doing some work and you get where you need to go.
Yeah.
But now you can take that time back for yourself instead of just focusing on the drive.
Wow.
And so we believe autonomous is coming. We have our partnership with Faction. They just released a great new video of a self-driving fun utility vehicle. Yeah. You can see it on Faction Moto YouTube channel. Maybe drop a link in there if you can. Yeah. I'll send it to you.
Fun. Make that happen.
Yeah, so they're also building our driverless deliverator as well. So, we're in on that technology. And then the fourth pillar, so we have electric, shared mobility, autonomous, and then right-sized, a small footprint vehicle. 90% of trips today have only one or two people, and they're mostly carrying a small amount of cargo. So, again, you're going to hit a button on your phone, transportation as a service. Maybe it's your phone, maybe it's your VR helmet, maybe it's your smart glasses, maybe it's your sleeve. Who knows what it'll be. You blink 3 times, and your car will come.
Boom, it's there.
And you're going to say, I have 2 people. I'm going to this location, and the right tool for the job is going to show up. Maybe if you're going skiing in Tahoe with the kids, the Model Y is going to show up. If you're doing what 90% of us do every day, then it's more than likely a vehicle like the FUV is going to be able to do that. And when you have a self-driving, now we're talking about zero emissions and zero collisions. So you have a really safe ecosystem. Yeah. And that also means, because it's shared mobility, you have a lot less vehicles on the road. So you've solved a lot of traffic issues. Imagine one of my favorite things is in traffic, you're at that red light and all the cars kind of squish together to come to a stop. And then when it goes green, that one car goes, the other car goes, and it stretches out again. But it's really slow and inefficient. Yeah. Imagine if the lights turn and it's like they're all moving together, almost like a train. Just like blood through your veins. That's so much more efficient. I think I read a stat once, even if we didn't go electric and we just got transportation to that point, we would solve 90% of transportation emissions, because you're just sitting there at lights spewing exhaust. So really cool. If you just have a smart transportation system where everything's moving, you might not even ever have to stop. The concept of lights can change. You can have a really smart city where everything is flowing perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're going. And I just love telling that story. It's sort of a no-brainer of a future. All the technology is coming together.
Yeah.
And we're working on all of those aspects right now.
I'd say no-brainer if you've thought about it this much. I think I certainly haven't thought about it that much. The first question should have been, what do you think the future of transportation is going to be? That's phenomenal. Something you kind of mentioned that is actually pretty big on my mind is just owning something is a hassle. We went on a 2-week trip and we came back and our car was towed because they went to trim leaves or to trim the branches on it.
Yeah.
And we're not just knowing that it's I don't have a really expensive thing, maybe even the most expensive thing some people own could just keep accruing costs. Having that gone would just be a real freedom.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. All your insurance is taken care of. I would hope that even future after that. I mean, I would imagine a country in Europe, for example, let's say Norway. Let's say we get to this point and we achieve all of those things. I think you're going to see transportation as a service almost treated like public transportation. It's such an investment in your infrastructure. You're going to have a huge quality of life increase for all your citizens. So it could come out of your tax dollars, or it could be very affordable, a couple bucks a ride. Mm-hmm. We'll see different pricing models, but I would like to think somewhere in the future it's just going to be part of living. It's going to be like water or maybe the internet.
Universal rideshare.
Yeah.
That's the next big push.
Could be.
That's a beautiful...
I could be 50 years out, but maybe sooner.
That's fascinating. Did you just start getting into kind of the future of, driving since you started the Arcimoto, or has this always been a kind of a pet interest of yours?
A little bit of both. When I lived in San Diego out of college, and I had a 40-mile one each way commute, so 80 miles a day.
A lot of time to think about it.
And when there were the horse races in Del Mar, you're just stuck in traffic, just gritting your teeth like, oh my God, this is so stupid. And living in LA with a bit of a commute, San Francisco with a bit of a commute. I mean, I hate driving. It's funny because I work with all these automotive reporters, and I'm probably the only one who just hates the idea of driving. I don't want to be in a car. And that's what really attracted me to FUV is going to those same cities where I'm stuck in traffic and pulling up to... I lived in this little beach house in San Diego, 1 block from the beach, so parking is notoriously horrible. And I go up there in my San Diego rental FUV, and I slipped into a spot this big, and I was like, that was 20 minutes that I saved right there.
Yeah.
And trust me, I remember parking my car back then. Oh, it's brutal. So that alone was just so nice. So the joy of driving the FUV in a city that I've already lived in, it totally opens it up in a new way. Even San Francisco, think about, it's nice to get on an artery if you have the timed lights. But with FUV, you don't really care about fuel so much. So you can get on a side street it's all stop signs, then throttle, hit that regen, throttle, hit that regen, and you're just buzzing through the city any way you want to go.
Yeah.
So it really opens things up.
That's score. I'm very excited to have you on the show again, man. I'm going to start off with, since you last came on, what other kind of theories do you have about the future of technology or the future of driving? It's going to be very exciting to just kind of see how, the whole U.S. and Norway or all these kind of European countries progress. But thank you very much for coming on the show. If you have any final thoughts, feel free. But
yeah, thank you guys. Arcimoto Podcast.
There we go.
Season 2 premiere.
There we go. All right. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Bye-bye.